Russian forces have intensified the offensive in eastern Ukrainian city of Avdiivka. Now, according to Ukrainian officials, some parts of Avdiivka are in critical condition as the Ukrainian forces are fighting Russian shelling and incursions. Is it just a matter of time that Avdiivka falls to Russia? What does Russia stand to gain from this strategic advancement in Ukraine? To discuss matters further, we are being joined up by Mr. Glenn Deason, who's a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway. Welcome to WION. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Deason, let's just start off with this. Is it almost certain now that Avdiivka will fall to Russia? Is it almost a done deal?
Yes, I think that it's quite obvious. I think it's collapsing as we speak quite rapidly as well. Now, how long it will take obviously depends if Ukraine will try to pull out what it can or fight on by sending more reserves. Obviously, this is what they did in Bakhmut, and Ukraine lost many of its best troops, holding on to something that was already lost. But you do have an infighting. Zelensky tends to want to hold on to territories which are already lost, while General Zaluzhny prefers to save the troops and pull out. So it depends what Ukraine decides to do, but the city is lost, or being lost at least.
Because a report suggests that the city had a population of about 32,000, which has been reduced to less than 1,000 now. So there are hardly any people living there. There's hardly any infrastructure left there. And of course, it is falling as we speak. Also wanted to get your thoughts on this now. If one just observes the Ukrainian map, Avdiivka is just a few kilometers from the Russian-occupied Donetsk city. Now, it's considered pivotal in the Kremlin's objective to gain control of the entire southeastern Donbass region. Talk to us about what Russia stands to gain from capturing Avdiivka, and why is Avdiivka important to Russia here?
Well, first of all, Avdiivka been a frontline state for 10 years, so the population has largely or completely removed itself since that time. But I think it will have a huge impact. Obviously, on the battlefield is quite important because Avdiivka has been the most fortified position for Ukraine. So with the collapse of Avdiivka, Russia can start making much greater territorial advancements, meeting softer targets as it moves along. And in time, it could also collapse all of southern Donetsk and then, get the Donbass, which has been a key issue in this war. But, it goes beyond this as well. I would say it also has a huge impact on morale. Obviously, very good for Russia and bad for Ukraine. But it's also, as you mentioned, it's been, as a frontline state, it's been this main city for shelling Donetsk city with artillery for the past 10 years. In more recent time, also shelling the civilian population with American cluster ammunition. So it would be considered a great victory for Russia if they could take it. Also, given that it was so fortified, it would free up almost 40,000 Russian troops, which can then move on, and this could have a snowball effect. So there's a reason why Ukraine wants to hold on to it, but I think they have given up on that ambition though.
Mr. Deason, also wanted to just, pick on what you had mentioned that, it's a fortified town and Russia also is looking to make it a fortress. I wanted to talk to you, or rather understand from you, what makes Avdiivka a fortress town? What makes it so fortified? Is it the infrastructure there, whatever is left of it, or is it something else?
Yeah, well, it's an industrial town, and so it has a lot of natural fortifications. Now, once you move out of Donbass, you don't have these heavy industries anymore, and it's very difficult to, and it then becomes much easier to move forward. So they use these heavy industries, such as the coke plant there, as being very important to fortify. And again, it has worked for this reason. How the Russians initially began to break through, now that they put Avdiivka in a tactical encirclement, it was because they came from the north. But initially, the Russians broke in by coming up in the south. They actually had to dig into a pipe going into the city and then advance far closer into the center, which was what initially caused confusion and panic among the Ukrainians. So it's not like as a fortified position, it served this purpose. It's been very, very effective, actually. So.
Mr. Deason, now, this is not the first time that Russia has targeted Avdiivka. There have been several attempts in the past as well. It started back in October, even earlier. I wanted to just understand, can Russia's recent advancements in Avdiivka, or rather near takeover of Avdiivka that we're nearly about to see, is it a direct consequence of the halt in US military support to Ukraine? Will more cities fall to Russia now?
Well, obviously the lack of equipment and and ammunition has been a common complaint by the Ukrainian military leadership on the front. So obviously less weapon supply also reduces the ability to fight. That would be common sense. However, there's also other problems, such as the manpower. Like NATO's trying to train new Ukrainians to go fight Russia, but you can't just put an army together on the go. So a lot of the people who are being sent to the front now are not well trained. They're not professionals. So the quality of the soldiers have dropped, but also, of course, the lack of ammunition and equipment also makes matters a lot worse.
Last year, we saw the US president standing on Ukrainian soil on the one-year anniversary. We're approaching another anniversary of the war. Should we expect any other appearances on Ukrainian soil this time?
It depends. I think everything is heating up a bit more in Kiev as well. But I think there's less opportunities, I guess, for making this grandstanding, because everyone now sees that Ukraine is faltering. The only thing is we're in a bit of a difficult position, because on one hand Ukraine is falling and it can't really be saved. So, and this was kind of evident. For example, when NATO Secretary General went to United States about 2 weeks ago, he tried to make a plea for more weapons, and essentially his argument was, this is a good deal. We get to kill Russians, and it's good for American arms industry. So I don't think anyone even has the pretense anymore that Ukraine can win this. But again, for NATO's sake, we're fighting with Ukrainians, so we don't really have any incentives to halt the fighting. So but in terms of going to Kyiv to make a grandstanding, I don't think that would be it would be very convincing at this point.
There's one quick one that I also want to get your thoughts on before we wrap up, sir. Putin is expected to be on Turkish soil very fast, very soon. Within few days from now, he will be visiting Turkey, which is a NATO state. What kind of tremors is that visit going to send across the West?
Well, it kind of makes the point obvious that Russia is not isolated. A key objective, of course, of this war was to defeat Russia on the battleground, destroy its economy, isolate it in the world, and then knock it out as of the ranks of great powers. This is very openly stated by America. This was the objective of provoking this war and the reason for sabotaging the peace agreements. But I think the divisions within NATO runs very deep. I think we've been able to cover up some of it, but there's a lot of divisions now, which I think will begin to surface, especially as Ukraine falls. So there's a lot of difficult days ahead for NATO.
That was Mr. Glenn Deason, Professor of International Relations, University of Southeastern Norway, joining us right here on WION. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights, sir.
My pleasure.